providing such a beautiful service. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. And even though Janet couldn't be here today, she provided all these beautiful slides and had them all ready for us, the bulletins and all of those things. So. If you wish to change the world, cultivate the boldness that does not quake, that does not budge 1 inch from the path of truth. I spoke a lot last Sunday about what is known now about Christianity, its history, the Bible. I said nothing that hasn't been written down, studied, researched. A lot. Yet for some, it was the first time they had heard it. Even had one woman that said, wow, she's a brave lady. And I didn't agree with that, because I think it doesn't take much bravery to stand up and tell the truth, and the truth as you know it. Something that truth you know is unbiased. It's something that's been researched, and you've come down to an unbiased place of here's what the truth is. Now, I know that there's a lot going on in the world these days, and today's daily word is truth. And I thought I would just say one word about that. That there are a whole lot of alternative truths going on in the world. Well, how can you have that? I'm not certain. But for me, I like to come back to the facts. And it's why I wanted to share that last Sunday about actually how the Bible was compiled, both the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian scriptures, and the history of the Christian faith. And it's not all pretty. It certainly isn't. And if you want to know the truth about it, research it yourself. Do a little reading. Don't go to a biased site, because you're going to get what they think. Get the truth. Get the truth. Buy a book. One of these books, What I Don't Know. There's a series, I don't know much about the Bible. Buy it and read it. It's by an unbiased source. You'll learn a lot. There was an invading emperor, Alexander the Great, went to India. His teacher told him to go and see some of those sages of India. And after a long search, he found a very old man sitting on a black blank of stone. The emperor talked with him a little bit and became very pleased with the conversation with the man. He asked the sage to go home with him to his country. No, I'm quite satisfied living here in my forest, the sage said. The emperor said, well, I will give you money, position, and wealth, for I am the emperor of the world. And at that time he thought he was, you know. No, replied the man, I don't care for those things. The emperor replied, well, if you don't go, I will kill you. The man just laughed. That's the silliest thing you've said yet. You can't kill me. The water cannot drown me, neither can the fire burn, neither instrument kill, for I am the birthless, the deathless, the omnipotent, omnipresent soul, ever living. You can't kill me, no matter what instrument you use. The emperor left, greatly humbled. What is spiritual courage? Is being aware of where your true power comes. It's not showy, boastful, or overzealous. It is a power that emanates from the source, and we all have it. Swami Vivekananda said, "Here's the test of truth. Anything that makes you weak, physically, intellectually, and spiritually, reject it as a poison. There's no life in it. It cannot be true." There are two sorts of courage. One's the physical kind, the courage to jump into the mouth of danger. Tigers and wolves, in that case, have been better than men. But there's another sort of boldness, one that is far rarer to find, and that's spiritual courage. Today's sermon is about spiritual courage. It's something to be unafraid in the face of fear, but spiritual courage is not fearlessness. Spiritual courage is taking action even when we're afraid. I know that courage is a word that came up to me in the last couple of weeks, and there have been several reasons, because we've had several instances that make us wonder what courage is. What's the courage to act? Love and fear cannot coexist, it's been said. In July of 1846, Henry David Thoreau was arrested for failing to pay a poll tax. And that failure was a choice. He believed the tax supported the Mexican-American War and the expansion of slavery into the American Southwest. He chose to spend a night in jail in the hope of raising awareness about the injustice of that war. He was opposed to it. And it's also said that he was mad as the devil when he learned that an unidentified woman paid the tax for him and he was free to go. What he didn't write about was that his friend Ralph Waldo Emerson visited him in jail. The story goes that Waldo said to Henry, "Henry, what are you doing in there?" To which Henry said, "Waldo, what are you doing out there?" Good question, huh? And I know we all have to ask ourselves what courage is. Spiritual courage is drawing a bright line between what is acceptable and what is not. And in another story, just after midnight on April 15th, 1912, two boats received the unimaginable message that the unsinkable Titanic was going down. I can imagine their shock. One of the boats, the Californian, was about 12 miles away and within eyeshot. And a crew member informed Captain Stanley Lord that the Titanic was sending up distress signals. Captain Lord chose not to act. He felt, he later said, that the hazard to himself and his command was too great to risk responding. A United States Senate inquiry concluded that such conduct, whether arising from indifference or gross carelessness, is most reprehensible and places upon the commander of the Californian a grave responsibility. And had he pushed through the ice to the foundering ship, the Californian might have saved many, perhaps even all, of those that were lost. The second boat to receive the Titanic's distress signal was well over 60 miles or as much as 4 hours away. The Carpathia's wireless operator, Harold, had just sent a message to his counterpart on the Titanic, letting him know there were messages from shore waiting for his passengers. And it said that the response from the Titanic made his blood run cold. So when he received the message from his counterpart on the Titanic that they were in trouble, he raced up to Captain Arthur Rostrom's cabin, ignoring First Officer Horace Dean, and flung open the door in a breach of protocol. He said, "The Titanic has sent out a distress call. She needs our assistance." The captain responded, "Turn this ship around." What a difference, huh? What a difference. Some of us have spiritual courage, some of us don't. What made them dig deeply within, although they didn't have near the resources to turn around and save so many on that boat? It's something we need to consider. Captain Rostrom later said of this wildly dangerous undertaking, he said, "I believe some other hand than mine was on the helm that night." And at about 4 a.m., when they finally arrived at the scene, the Titanic was nowhere in sight. Impossibly, the unsinkable ship was gone. There came a green flare from a lifeboat. And over the next 4 hours, the Carpathia navigated around the site of the wreck, collecting survivors. Spiritual courage is not carelessness or foolishness. We know that. And we wouldn't want to put our family or loved ones in danger to rescue another. But where we can, we know that it is ours to do, to go in and save those that we can. My husband laughs sometimes at the saying and actions of a group of people that get together and they're drinking too much. And he says that one of the sayings just before a huge disaster where somebody is really hurt is they'll say, "Here, hold my beer and watch this." Anybody been with a group like that? Seen anything bad happen, have you? I bet you have. You're not going to find your courage. And this is what I said earlier that I was going to speak of right now. You are not, and listen to me now, and those that had to step out, tell them if they didn't hear it. You're not going to find your courage in a bottle, folks. You're not. I was telling Beth this morning, she and I were discussing that. One of the reasons I don't drink, and it's not because I find anything wrong with it, or, I drink if it makes you feel good, and it's not dangerous to your health or someone else's. I don't because I don't like the way it makes me feel. I can have a half a glass of wine and I'm the goofiest person that ever lived. And that's the truth. I don't like that. I don't want to think about tomorrow, something that I said when I had too much to drink. It's that simple. I don't have time for it. I'm a busy person. And while I'm awake, I'm working, I'm doing something important, and I need all my faculties to do it. I don't want to be dulled. I don't want my senses dulled. I want to be aware while I'm awake, okay? That's why I don't drink. And I don't want to say something, and I don't want to act silly. That's why I don't drink. And I want to put my energy and love and focus and whatever in with those that have a problem giving up drink. I'm going to give them my support. And here's the other thing, and you can agree with me or not, remember, or not. I don't want to feel goofy from smoking either. And if that's your choice, you do it. It's not my choice. I want to be aware of my faculties. I want my spiritual courage, my courage to come from the source, from God. I don't want to get my courage out of a bottle. It's the wrong place, and it's going to have the wrong outcome, I guarantee you, whether it's today, tomorrow, or next week. There's also a story I wanted to tell you that it's about fear. And I think it's applicable about right now because it's time to come out, folks. It's time to come out. The pandemic is pretty much over. And some of us have used it as an excuse too long. It's time to come out. Several years ago, and I've told this story before, and I'm going to remind you of it. I read a story about a Japanese soldier who hid in a cave on Guam for 28 years. 28 years. He went into hiding when the Japanese fled from the island when the Americans took over in 1944. And he was waiting for the Japanese to come to return and get him. He thought the war was still going on. Isn't it amazing? Well, 28 years later, he was spotted by some farmers, and as they went to the creek, and they saw this this skeleton of a person, hardly nothing but a bag of bones. Turns out he was wearing rags, as you can imagine, things that he had tried to fashion that he could wear. His clothes were just worn out at that point. He had been hiding in a cave for 28 years out of fear. Fear. Isolation will do a lot to you, you know. We're learning that as we're coming back from the pandemic, and so many have isolated themselves. And even as the pandemic is over, they are using it as an excuse to stay home and to stay isolated. Okay, now we all need quiet time and solitude. We do. I even send my husband off from the house quite often. He says, he laughs, that he has to be out of the house by 8 o'clock in the morning and can't come back until 6 at night. There's a little bit of truth to that. He's a hyper kind of person and keeps something going all the time. So if I'm working on something, I need him someplace else, working in the garden, over at his shop in Bay St. Louis or something. But solitude is one thing, and that is something that I need. Isolation isn't, folks. If you stay isolated long enough out of fear, the next thing you know, you're going to start believing a lot of things you're telling yourself. Oh, well, I can't get back out because blah, 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 whatever. I've heard it all. I hear every story coming down the pike. And maybe this week I'm frustrated with them all. I don't know. Isolation isn't good. Because if you didn't have real things to consider, dangers, you'll invent some. And that's what fear does to you. So this morning, as I've been talking about spiritual courage, and Joan, just so you'll know, one of the things I said was you don't get your spiritual courage out of a bottle, and you don't get it from what you're smoking. Spiritual courage comes from the source. It comes directly from God. And it comes to people like we're on the airplane on 9/11, and the people that stood up to the hijackers, knowing they were going down anyway. We're just here on a journey, folks. Like the sage said when he laughed at the man that said he was going to kill him, "You can't kill me." I think it's Clarissa Pinkola Estes that says, we're at a time right now where it's time for all souls on deck. All souls on deck. Stand up and show your soul. It's time. I invite you to be courageous, not to get your courage from some other place, but to get it directly from God. You don't have to pay for a trip to get it. It's free, right here, right now. And you know what? All you have to do is ask. Thank you for your time.
Bravo, Judy. Well said.
Thank you.